How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your January 2019 monthly horoscope for Virgo. Happy New Year's, Virgo. Super excited to be in 2019. That was sarcastic. Just kidding, it wasn't. I think that this month is, just to kind of give you guys a general overview of it, I really do think that this month is going to be kind of more serious, and it's not going to be as fun. I wouldn't say as fun. It's not like it's been, the time of your lives recently. But I do think that the Venus-Jupiter conjunction that we're happening and Mars being in Aries, although it's going to be a little bit rough, I do think that it's also going to inspire you to really find different and creative ways to really go about going through this more, not difficult time, but it's definitely not a time for fun, a time for positivity, a time for, great things to happen. I really do think January is just going to get more serious. So let's talk about that. Starting off with January, and hold on, before we even start, I don't mean to say like this is a doom scope or anything like that. It's not going to be that bad, realistically. It's just not good. It's not Virgo season. It's not your birthday, and this month is being a little bit more serious than usual. But anyway, let's go into it. Starting off January 1st, we have two pretty big things happening. We have Mars ingressing into Aries, and we have the Sun-Saturn conjunction. Mars going into Aries is a really, really big deal because, Mars was in Aquarius for like 6 months, then went into Pisces in your 7th house where it was tearing up relationships, making relationships and partnerships just a confusing thing for you. And as Mars goes to your 8th house, this is when things will get a little bit better, but a little bit weirder. Because Mars is all about your action, your energy, your drive, your ambition. He wants to sever, he wants to cut, he makes things a little bit more angry, and he inflammates things. However, he's going into his home sign of Aries where he can actually operate at a much more higher functioning level. He can actually do the things that he's good at doing. You don't hire a Marine to bake cupcakes, you hire a Marine to kill people, you know what I mean? Like, this is getting the person for the right job, or the right person for the right job. However, he is going to be entering your 8th house, and this is where it's going to become tricky because the 8th house is of other people's resources, death, transformation, has a lot to do with like anxiety and your fears. The 8th house is just a very uncomfortable place. It has a lot of change, it has a lot of growth. It has to do with, taxes and other people's money and their resources and everything like that. And I think as Mars goes into Aries and spends the whole month in Aries for you guys, I think that this is going to show a lot more influence and power over this area with, maybe you have people kind of helping you out and supporting you in a way that's kind of getting you where you need to go. And I also think Mars and Aries in your 8th house is going to be kind of like leading you forward into uncharted new territory, maybe doing something new, doing something that, I don't want to say new and exciting, but you're having to do something that you've never done before, and I think that's causing a lot of fear because it's fear of the unknown. But I do think that Mars in Aries is giving you guys the ability to actually do it even though you may be scared. And I do think that's going to be a big deal, and I think what's going to be a big part of it is, again, on January 1st, we have the Sun-Saturn conjunction. So Saturn's now out of shadow, he's flying forward in Capricorn, the sun is going to hit Saturn where it kind of restarts that whole cycle with Saturn with, what are we wanting to construct, what are we wanting to build, what needs to be, where are our limits, where do we need to discipline ourselves more. And this is happening in your 5th house. We're going to talk a lot about your 5th house in this video, and this is what's interesting, and this is why I kind of said the things that I said in the beginning of this video is, the 5th house is of, love, romance, sex, creativity, hobbies, children. It has a lot to do with like life force energy. It has a lot to do with your creative endeavors, the things that you really want to enjoy and do. And I think the Sun-Saturn conjunction is going to make this feel like a time where it really isn't going to be fun, but it's time for you to really reset your intentions on what that's supposed to look like. And when I say reset your intentions, I'm talking about Saturn in your 5th house is like, okay, like what are you wanting to create? What are you wanting to build? What's holding you, like do you have a lot of fun stuff that's holding you back? Is that what's, taking the energy away from you actually, doing what it is that you need to do? Are you like having too much fun, or are you not letting yourself have fun? Saturn in the 5th house, either way, fun is not the experience. And I think the sun hitting Saturn in your 5th house is going to be a really big time to really look at, okay, what's worth investing into, what's worth dedicating my time and energy into in a creative pursuit, something that really brings you that life force energy versus something that is just kind of a waste, something that really, holds you back, something that you use to avoid, something that you use to be passive about things. And I really do think the Sun-Saturn conjunction is going to be kind of helping you guys look at and setting those intentions towards, okay, what is limiting me in this area and where do I need to discipline myself and structure my creative pursuits and my hobbies, or maybe time for your kids or more romantic interests. Where do you need to really lock that down and concentrate that? And it may feel like it's a very, it's not going to be an expressive time. It's not Jupiter in your 5th house where you'd be like, yes, everything's awesome. I love things. They're so stable right now. Saturn being in your 5th house is making this more of like, let's get real about this. Let's really, be serious about this. And when when the sun hits Saturn, this is going to be a time of like really getting serious about those themes. And I'm hitting on that a lot because basically this whole video is going to be talking about your 8th, your 4th, and your 5th house. So anyway, moving forward, after that, we do have the new moon solar eclipse in Capricorn. This is going to be in your 5th house. So like I said, that Sun-Saturn conjunction is going to make you feel like, you've got something weighing on you. There's limitations. You need to discipline. You need to create some structure around this area. I do think that this new moon and this eclipse that's happening on the 5th is going to give you that energy to kind of reset the intentions there. And this is an eclipse. An eclipse is a big exclamation point on things. You want to pay attention to this. And this is in your 5th house. And this is Capricorn stuff. So I really think this is kind of taking the time to look at, okay, what really needs, like, what do I want? What do I want to build? What is, holding me back from doing that? And the other thing is that this is a solar eclipse, so this is the south node being right here. And the south node is something of your past, something that you want to let go of. You want to jump more into another area. And it's not about doing things in such a concrete, boxed form like Capricorn does. However, what I think is important about the south node is also what you're naturally good at. It's also what you hold within you, something that you can also bring to the table. It's not the direction you want to be going in, but you need to use those abilities in order to move forward. And I really think that this month is going to show you, or I should say this eclipse is really going to show you, this may not be the direction that you're wanting to go in, having to make these limitations, having to discipline yourself in these areas. But this eclipse is going to show you like, hey, if you just concentrate your energy on these things that actually bring you value, that actually create that and solidify that into your life, then maybe you should look back in your past and how, you did things before. How did you get everything that you wanted to do before, like the things that you want to enjoy? How did you make more time for your kids before? How did you, make more time for your romantic partnerships or your romantic interests? How did you make more time for your hobbies, and how did you, concentrate that? And I do think that eclipse is going to help you look back and go, what worked in the past and how can I utilize that now? Anyway, moving forward, also on the 5th, we have Mercury entering Capricorn. So as Mercury goes into your 5th house, this is, Mercury and Capricorn. Things need to be efficient. Things need to make sense. They need to be tangible. And so while it's in the 5th house, this is going to be a big time of kind of looking at all this stuff. What works, what makes sense, what's real, what's not real, what can actually, come to fruition, what actually has some potential. And when I say that, I mean with Mercury being about our ideas, our communication, what you're kind of thinking about. Mercury being in this 5th house area is going to give you that mindset and give you that mentality to really work through all of this stuff with a, pace of thought that is, not too fast but not too slow, and you can kind of delegate things in a much more efficient way. Moving forward, 2 days later, on January 7th, we have Venus entering Sagittarius. She's out of your 3rd house, she's out of your 2nd house, and she's in your 4th house. So Venus is all about value. She's bringing things together. She's wanting to express and love and indulge. And as Venus goes into your 4th house, this is bringing that energy towards yourself. And not in the 1st house way of like your personality and whatnot. The 4th house has to do with your family and your heritage, your parents, your home life or your private life, like what's going on at home for you. And the 4th house is also really big on how you center yourself. And we talked about this a while with Jupiter being in Sag. But with Venus being right here, I think this is where you're going to start to gravitate towards finding that value in where you live and finding that value with where you center yourself. And Venus is in Sagittarius, so this may be a time for exploring new options for you, exploring new territories, exploring new places, and seeing what's going to be the best fit for you when it comes to valuing where you live and valuing where you ground yourself. So that is going to be good, and we'll be talking more about that. However, on the 7th as well, Uranus goes direct. And this is what's really interesting, is that Uranus is also in your guys' 8th house. And as Uranus dipped back into your 8th house, where those 8th house themes are kind of, explosive, but Uranus is retrograde, so it's more of an internalized thing. As Uranus goes direct, I think this 8th house stuff is really going to explode a little bit more, and not in a bad way. But as Mars is in Aries, and Mars wants to accomplish, and he wants to do things, and it's in your 8th house of other people's resources, of, anxiety and stuff like that, I feel like Uranus going direct right there is really going to bring a lot of life to that 8th house, and not necessarily life as in beautiful flowers and a waterfall, but it's just gonna be like chaos. It's kind of like, Black Friday shopping. It's gonna get really intense right there, and it's, Black Friday shopping is not really good or bad. It's kind of just a thing. So with Mars going right there, it's just gonna be kind of explosive, kind of energetic, and you're gonna have the energy to fight your way through it and to get through it. Just know that that's gonna come. So anyway, moving forward, on January 10th, we actually have the Sun-Pluto conjunction, which, of course, this is happening in your 5th house, bringing up more themes of the 5th house of, okay, it's kind of feeling like you're, the 5th house, love, sex, children, all those fun things. Pluto is, crazy, death and plague and genocide, crazy stuff like that. But I think the sun hitting Pluto is really just going to bring this utter feeling of, uncertainty, things falling apart, things crumbling. And I really do think that this is going to be a big time, though, to realize that although things may be crumbling, that this is also a realization that things are changing. And as the sun hits Pluto, it's basically you got to realize and wake up to that change that is happening in that area of your life. Moving forward after that, on January 11th, we have Mercury conjoining Saturn, and this is in your 5th house, where again, Mercury wants to kind of delegate things, get things, somewhat functionable in Capricorn. And as it hits Saturn, that's kind of he's kind of okay, Mercury's got to deliver a message to all the planets. Now he's going to Saturn's house, knocking on his door, giving him his mail, and Saturn's got mail for him too. And Saturn's saying, you need to concentrate on this stuff. You need to figure out a way to integrate this a little bit more. Find an efficient system of operations within this area of your life with actually pursuing what you want to do. Or maybe, again, spending more time with your kids, delegating your kids. I don't have kids, but I'm assuming it's fucking nuts owning a couple or raising a couple. Anyway, Mercury hitting Saturn is just giving you the ideas and giving you the insight into what needs to happen, but it's also going to be it's not necessarily I know what needs to happen now. It's more of this is really hardcore. I do need to change this, and now it's starting to become clear in my head what needs to change. So be prepared for kind of a Mercury Saturn, all of a sudden the limits and the Saturn energy just kind of hits you mentally. So don't get too drained about it, but just know that that's coming. Also on the 11th, we have Jupiter squaring Neptune, and this is where it gets weird, because Neptune's in your 7th house, and Jupiter's in your 4th house, and Neptune in your 7th house is just making relationships just a whole weird thing and area for your life at the moment in a very, mundane sense. But as Jupiter is in Sag in your 4th house, where it's, what's going on with your family, what's going on with, your parents, what's going on in your home and your private life. And Jupiter kind of is wanting to expand this area, show you different ways of thinking, different ways of going, learning new things. And I think this is really just going to be kind of opening up a door to learning more about the relationships that are inside of your family. And maybe you didn't know everything, and maybe that there's more to be discovered. So I think that's pretty cool. I definitely look into that. And then we get a couple days off, nothing crazy happening really until January 16th when the sun hits Saturn, or the sun hits the south node. And this is, again, when we were talking about earlier about working our way from our past, not working away from, learning from our past and utilizing what we did in our past to help shape our futures today. The sun hitting the south node is kind of expressing that energy of now I really am going back into what used to work for me then, and I'm applying it now. And I think the sun hitting the south node is really integrating that and really putting a spotlight, the sun, onto that area of, what worked in the past, what are you naturally good at that is going to help you progress and go to the area that you want. So after that, that's basically like the first half of January. That's what's going on. And then we have the second half, which is crazy. On the 18th, Mercury is going to hit Pluto, which I do think is going to be some aftermath of the Sun-Pluto conjunction. However, on the 18th, Venus also trines Mars. And as Mars is going through your 8th house where this time feels scary, but you know you have the energy to do it, Venus in your 4th house is kind of like, hey, you know, this is actually a really good thing and you really like this good thing. You want to go to this good place. You want to center yourself in this place. Don't be scared to take new actions to get yourself there. And I really do think Venus and Sagittarius is going to bring a lot of hope, a lot of value and fun stuff happening with your home life, where you live or your family and stuff like that. And as it trines Mars, I think this is also going to be a really good time to be able to move forward with that. Go with the changes, go with the flow and be able to take, like, you know, it's not just about realizing what is a good thing. It's about realizing what's a good thing and utilizing that good thing. And I do think that's what this Venus-Mars trine is going to look like. However, 2 days later on January 20th, we have the big day of January. The sun goes into Aquarius. We have a full moon in Leo. It's a total lunar eclipse. We have Mars squaring Saturn and Venus squaring Neptune. A lot is happening. Let's talk about the sun going into Aquarius. It's now going to be, what is it, your 6th house, where we're focusing on your routine, your day-to-day stuff, your health, your habits, your sense of service, employment, things like that. So the energy and the essence and focus is mainly on that area. However, this full moon and total lunar eclipse is happening in your 12th house in Leo. And the 12th house is repressed parts of yourself, unacknowledged parts of yourself, things that you're not always aware of. It's, you know, your dreams, it's your subconscious, it's, you know, hidden enemies and things like that. And as this full moon happens, where we're talking about illuminating things, and this is Leo, I think this is coming to terms with a lot more of that one last big blow of an eclipse in Leo, of like realizing your power, realizing your worth, realizing what you want, and taking more pride in that, and being more self-accepting of that. And I really think that this is going to be like the sun's in the 6th house. All right, the focus is on like your day-to-day stuff, and it's also a focus on problems. The 6th house is notorious for things falling apart and breaking, and I really do think that this full moon eclipse is going to be like, bro, like, if you want to make these changes, you got to be able to carry that confidence every single day, and you've got to be able to carry that love every single day, and you've got to be willing to figure out a way to make it all connect and make it all work together. So you're not just you're not just winded after one day of, you know, being the best that you can and putting a happy face on. I do think that this is going to be about integration of bringing that Leo energy that it's easy for you to repress and it can be very easy for you to ignore or not acknowledge at times, and being able to work on that every single day and have the ability for that. And I think what's going to trigger this is the Mars-Saturn square. And as Saturn's in your 5th house, where it's like, you know, the things that you really want to do aren't there, but Mars is in your 8th house and he's dignified, it's kind of like, you know, it's going to make you feel like you don't have the power, you don't have the will, you don't have the energy to really push through and break through. But as Mars is in Aries, where you're wanting to, like, you have the energy, I really just think it's about taking in more of that power that you have and just laying down the law in a sense, like being able to work through this stuff every single day, being able to face fear, know your fear and understand why you're scared and still do what you need to do anyway. And as Saturn is in your 5th house, where he's wanting to concentrate, he's wanting to limit, he's wanting you to be disciplined here, I think this is going to be a very serious time for you. However, Venus is also squaring Neptune. Not the biggest deal, but I think it is going to just give more insight into, like, you know, stuff that's going on in your family life, stuff that's going on in your home life with your parents, finding out things that you didn't know, not necessarily bad things, just things that you just maybe didn't know. But Venus is in Sagittarius, where she's wanting to discover and she's wanting to learn. So again, maybe this is learning more about, you know, someone that's prominent in your family or in your life. However, to move forward, the last couple days of January, on January 21st, the next day, we have Venus conjoining Jupiter. And this Venus-Jupiter conjunction is going to be pretty badass. You know, this is good things happening in your home life. You know, love, peace, you know, fun things. So expect something really good happening. Either maybe you just feel centered and you have a mission, you're ready to go somewhere or do something, and you just feel centered in that power and the excitement that is a journey. Or, you know, something good's going to happen with your parents. Something good's going to happen with, you know, just where you're living or your roommates or something like that. So be prepared for some good positive things in that area. And also on January 21st, Mercury is going to conjoin the South Node in Capricorn, where I think where this Venus and Jupiter conjunction is like very prominent of positive energy. The Mercury South Node conjunction is going to be kind of like realizing how going into your past, figuring out what worked before, and also figuring out what you need to stay away from and what direction you need to be going in. Mercury hitting the South Node is having more clarity on that, having more clarity on what was in the past that worked. What direction do you want to move forward in, and also, simplifying what worked in the past, simplifying that idealism, and being able to try to apply that. So I think the Mercury South Node thing will give you some more insight. But after that, on January 23rd, Mercury will enter Aquarius. January 25th, Mars will trine Jupiter, where Mars is in your 8th house. Again, Jupiter's in your 4th house. It's kind of just like the Venus-Mars trine, but better because it's Jupiter. And then on January 29th, as Mercury is in Aquarius in your 6th house, where things, it's all about your mentality, focusing on the everyday, focusing on integration. Mercury's going to conjoin the Sun and go Cazimi, where it'll pierce, the Sun will pierce the heart of Mercury. And I think a lot more understanding of how to apply these things and how to integrate all of these new changes into your everyday routine are really going to come to surface. So that's going to be great. And that's on January 29th. And that is it. Yeah, that's basically it for your month. I do think that it's going to be kind of, again, not fun, like I said earlier, but there are a lot of good things that are happening, especially in your home and your family life. It's just about concentration. And so with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and liking and commenting and sharing and subscribing and liking, or I think I already said that, but whatever. But anyway, thank you guys so much, and I'll be seeing you guys next month.